Our 2014 Chrysler 300S all-wheel drive with a V6 3.6 liter engine. We've had this car for 7.5 years, over 120,000 miles, and this is a video of how it still drives, what went wrong with it, and what do we think, and if I would still recommend this vehicle to somebody after having it for so long. So we're gonna start off first in the engine bay. After 120,000 miles, the only thing that went wrong here is gonna be the coolant thermostat housing. That part ended up costing us $20 and about 20 to 30 minutes in labor at AutoZone parking lot. It wasn't that big of an issue. I first noticed it when there was coolant and a little bit of smoke coming up from the hood. We pulled over, looked where the leak was coming from. The coolant thermostat housing is just this piece of plastic with pretty much a plunger in there that retracts and goes back depending on the temperature of the engine, and that dictates on how much coolant is being sent inside the engine. I don't know if you can hear it, but there is a slight little exhaust leak coming from the exhaust manifold. It's not that big of an issue. The car still drives quietly, accelerates quietly, but you can hear a faint exhaust noise in there coming out from the engine bay. That is honestly the only thing I can say after 120,000 miles and 7.5 years of ownership that was wrong with this vehicle mechanically wise. Now coming around to the actual tires and suspension of the vehicle, this is where most of the problems were with this vehicle. Speaking on that, on the front suspension, we had pretty much the whole front end redone and all the steering. All of the control arms, tie rods was replaced on the vehicle. It was all labor, but that pretty much all cost me just about $1,000. Other than that coolant thermostat housing and the front suspension work and steering work, that's been pretty much it. I also forgot the rack and pinion was also changed out, and there's a sensor that needs to be calibrated on these cars to tell it where the steering position is, and I did not get that done. The reason being is the dealership won't tell me exactly how much it's going to cost. They want to go through the vehicle and then give me a quote, which I already know how the dealership is going to go about this. They're going to try running it up and give me a bunch of crap for it. And the car runs fine. The all-wheel drive system still works. The only thing is I have a traction light on, and that really doesn't bother me, so I'm not really going to get it fixed. As you guys can see, the car drives fine, drives straight. For over 120,000 miles, this car is actually impressive how well it's held up together. And for a Mopar Chrysler product, that for how much of a bad reputation they get, I know it's a hit or miss depending on who's working the line, pretty much how high they are at the moment when they're assembling your vehicle. But at the end of the day, we lucked out. The Jeep so far has been running good. So far so good with the Mopar products. Some points I just wanted to make with these cars is they still look good. After 10 years, this car still looks pretty modern. It's got all the fancy features that you'd want in a normal car. I highly recommend these cars. They're at a cheaper price point now, especially when we first purchased this out. I got it from the dealership with just 20,000 miles on it, and we got it for $19,000. We're at 166,000 miles now, so I could probably sell this car for $7,000 to $8,000. It's a really nice vehicle. We didn't lose too much compared to how, some of these cars lose value. It's a decent car. The interior is still in great condition. I'm a machinist. I get a lot of metal chips, so there's a lot of rust built up over here. Other than that though, the leather has remained in pretty decent shape. Steering wheel has a little bit of wear. The back also looks as good. That comes off, that's from the kids. But the seats have held up pretty well. Even owning a dog, we always put towels down, but even with the dog, it still holds up really nice. Trunk is not automatic open, but when you press the button, it usually pops it open and it lifts by itself. This is, however, not an automatic feature. It doesn't have any actual system opening the trunk. Plenty of space in the trunk. Seats do go down. Trunk has held up relatively well. I took out this speaker. That was a Beats speaker. I had a custom audio system in here until I ended up putting this vehicle out for rent. So is the 2014 Chrysler 300S all-wheel drive with 3.6 liter 8-speed transmission a vehicle I would recommend to somebody? Absolutely. The cost of ownership on these vehicles is relatively cheap. Getting parts is cheap. All the parts I've ever needed for this car are relatively cheap. Especially if you're in Detroit or the Motor City, these cars are everywhere. You can pick up parts everywhere. So yeah, highly recommend this vehicle. I've loved this vehicle. My wife's loved it. The kids have loved it. It's been through all of our business ventures, from contracting to just everything. It's really been a part of our growth as a family.